Can I start by asking you then, a tragedy that has taken place, a crime that has taken place in Kenya, can you bring us up to speed and explain to me exactly what you now know about the situation?
Well, it's been going on since Saturday, about midday. At that time, the information that we had was that about 20 gunmen, now we know it's gunmen and women, had entered the mall at Westlands. Very, very popular mall. Popular with young people, popular with the mothers, who bring their children there for breakfast on Saturdays, give them a treat there. It's really one place that I probably would have been if I was at home on Saturday. So it is not surprising that there were so many people in the mall at that time of the day. It just is always like that. You
might have been there. I know you've been speaking to your president. He had relatives there.
Yes, yes, and so did many other people. Yeah, in fact, the president lost, a relative. In fact, two relatives in there. So yes, I think it has touched everybody, not just in Kenya, but I think across the world. You had Canadians, you had British, you had Americans, yeah, who died in there, Ghanaians, Africans from other parts of the continent, some Asians, So, it's something that has touched, I think, everybody, across the world. So it's not even truly a Kenyan affair anymore. Yes, we provided the venue, I guess, but it has touched, everybody, and both the victims and the perpetrators came from across the world.
Do we know if there are still hostages, and are there still hostages alive?
From all the information that we have, yes, there's still some hostages.
Alive?
Not many. I can't really disclose that, but there's some hostages in there that are some alive, some others not. But obviously, if they're being held, by those evil men and women, they must be holding them as human shields, right? So some of them may actually be alive, but I don't know who's alive, who's not.
Do you believe the situation is close to being resolved?
Yeah, resolved, I don't know, but are we going to end this siege? I hope very, very soon. I think from everything that we have seen so far and heard, there's only one part of the mall that is still under the control of the terrorists.
Do we know how many of them are still alive?
No, I don't know how many of them are still alive. I don't know how many of them may have escaped. Actually, there was mayhem, and people who are, as people left, I'm sure some of them went out with them, because some were even caught as far away from the venue as the airport. 4 have been arrested that were trying to flee the country. So there you have it. Some are in there, some are out, some are dead. One is injured, at least that information I had. Yeah.
And is the operation at the moment just the work of the Kenyan security forces, or are there foreign security forces also involved, as has been reported?
I think that most of the work is being done by the Kenyans. They have support. I think those that came in first to support were the Israelis. But I think that right now intelligence is being shared across the board. I think that resources are being shared across the board. So I think there are others that are helping, other than the Kenyans and the Israelis, who are the first ones there.
You've mentioned the Israelis, and I know Israel has good relations with Kenya, but you've made their role pretty public. Doesn't that, you think, create the danger that Kenya might be targeted again, because these militants, the country they hate most is Israel?
Well, in 1998 we were targeted because we were very, very close to the United States, and the U.S. Embassy was targeted. You remember that, right? We've been targeted before. Lodges in Mombasa that people believed, housed or at least had the majority of the occupants from the West and Israel have been targeted as well. And really, if you are facing a tragedy of that magnitude, anybody who comes in, I know that others from the Middle East have also provided support. I know that we've been talking to them. I know that they have pledged their support. So when you're facing a tragedy of that magnitude, right, your friends come in and they help. And you don't turn people away for any such reasons, right? We've worked with Israel for many, many years. They have always supported us in times of difficulty. We do not apologize for that to anybody. And we have worked with others as well. We've worked with the Americans, with the British. We've worked with the Arabs from the Middle East. We have a lot of projects that we're doing together. And so we have always been an open society that has friends from all over the world.
This mall had security. Do you think security levels across Nairobi, across Kenya, will now have to change?
They will change, but I don't know how much security you can provide to forestall something like this. I mean, they came in with their guns blazing. They killed as they walked in. It doesn't matter what you had there. They would have still inflicted maximum damage. I have no doubt in my mind that that would be the case, even if we had hundreds of additional security So that is actually a new phase of terrorism that we're seeing, and we better be prepared for it. We now need to up our game and start doing things differently. We need to start cooperating much more across the board, and it doesn't matter with which countries. It has to be with everybody, because they are cooperating, they are coordinating the activities. They're doing much better than we're doing. That's not acceptable. It really isn't. Some ragtag, groups of militants being able to do much better than we're doing as governments, right? Because we know that they've been working with others, in North Africa, in Yemen, in West Africa, some of those that were in Mali even. How is it possible that they can be better coordinated, that they can share information better, share assets better, share resources better, train each other, right? And we can't do that better than them, faster than them, right? We must stay ahead of the curve, right, in this war against terrorism. It's going to affect all of us. Today it's Kenya. In fact, as it happened in Kenya, it happened in Mogadishu, it happened in Pakistan, it happened in Iraq, it happened in other parts of the world as well. So basically we're all in this together, and we need to just put all the capabilities and the capacities and the resources that we have to fight this. We need to create the mechanisms that we need to fight it, and we need to do whatever needs to be done so that Westgate doesn't happen every day in every other country.
You talk about a global fight. Tell us who you think exactly your enemy is. Certainly the Al-Shabaab spokesman who's been speaking to the media says that they are getting their orders from Al-Qaeda.
Of course. Of course. This is not just Al-Shabaab. This is Al-Qaeda. The hallmarks of Al-Qaeda. The way this thing was planned, the way it was coordinated, I just told you that, they've been talking to everybody, obviously. If it was just Al-Shabaab, I don't know how much support they would get, how much training they would get, how much resources would be provided to them. This is definitely Al-Qaeda. It was led by somebody not from Somalia. It wasn't led by anybody from Kenya, for that matter. It was led by somebody from another part of the world. So basically, we need to understand that. And giving them a different name doesn't actually help. I think we need to just call them by their name, the name that they acquired since 9/11. And continue to fight them in that way, because as soon as you start talking about Al-Shabaab or Boko Haram, then you assign these groups to different parts of the world, and they're no longer part of the whole, right? And in that way, they will always be ahead of us. But as soon as we all agree, Al-Qaeda, no other names, whether they're operating in Nigeria or in Mali or in Somalia, we're going to fight them relentlessly with the same level of force, right? With the same amount of resources. We are going to do what needs to be done to fight them. Then we'll be able to deal with them.
What about the grievances that the Al-Shabaab spokesman has been citing? Your involvement, Kenya's involvement in Somalia, the mistreatment they say of Somali refugees. What do you say to those points? They are not the
spokesman for Somalia. Somalia has an elected government. It's that government that invited us in. We have been there with the blessings of the government. We are part of an African Union mission. Initially, when we went in because our security and economic interests were threatened. They were walking into our country. They were killing both Kenyans and foreigners. They were taking Kenyan tourists who had come to enjoy the beauty of our country, taking them hostage and killing them. Some of them were from the West. Okay, I think you remember those cases. We did not go into Somalia because we thought it was going to be a good adventure for the Kenyan military. It wasn't. We went there to defend ourselves. It was self-defense. Everybody does it, and everybody should do it in the future if they feel threatened. And so we're not moving out. If that's what they intended for this to do, we are not, because we're going to stay in until we feel that Somalia is stable, that it's secure. As far as our borders are concerned, they're much more secure today than they were in 2011 when we walked in. The part of Somalia that we are in is been pacified, it's more secure, it has local authorities, people are going about their business. The port is working, the airport is working. It did not when they were there. They ran that country down to the ground. They could not have done worse. They could not have done worse. Now I think we're seeing the probably the last kicks of a dying horse. And so we need to all get together to make sure that that horse stays down and doesn't get up.
Some of those who escaped from the mall tell stories about how they had to prove whether they were Muslim, and those that couldn't prove they were Muslim were then killed. You're not just the foreign minister of Kenya, you happen to be a Kenyan Muslim.
Correct.
What's your view as a Kenyan Muslim?
Well, I obviously do not belong to the same religion as these evil people. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I don't. Because I belong to a faith that preaches peace, it preaches harmony, it preaches tolerance, acceptance. It's a humble religion. I don't belong to that religion that kills indiscriminately, without any excuse, without any reason, for no purpose and no end in sight. I don't belong to that religion that they profess. I am a Muslim. Islam means peace. It brings people together. It doesn't tear people apart. In Kenya, we've practiced Islam for the longest period. We have lived together as brothers and sisters with everybody else. We have intermarried. We pray with each other. We say grace at the table in Arabic or in English. We don't have a problem with each other. And this will unify us much more than ever before. We are not going to be torn apart, not by terrorists, not by foreign terrorists. We will not accept that. And if you saw the pictures, Kenyans of all shapes, of all colors, of all faiths, queuing up to give blood in support. The chairman, the Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross, Abbas, is Muslim. He was walking in and out of the mall, bringing people out. One of the first people that we had there was a government officer who was a Muslim who saved over 100 people. So we are a very tolerant society. I think that our morality has never been in question. We have very high moral standards, and we're not going to allow these evil people to come between us and our other compatriots, us and our brothers and sisters, because we all have brothers and sisters who are either Muslim or Christian.
You talk about unity. You have a large Somali population in Kenya. Are you at all worried about a backlash against them?
You know, we have been here before. We're very resilient, and we don't, like I said, we're not going to allow foreigners to divide us. There are Somalis that are Kenyan nationals. There are Somalis that are refugees in our country. We have protected them over 20 years. We're not going to let this turn us against them. We won't allow it. There is always that danger that when something like this happens, people are angry. They're very, very angry, and they stereotype, they profile, right? That does happen. I hope it won't happen in my country, because even when we faced this before, it did not happen. So, at least from what I've seen, the people that have been helping, that have been supporting the efforts on the ground, you've seen, women being brought out in hijab, right, supporting others. You've seen children being brought out that were in hijab, being carried by others. That is a true picture of my country. We've always lived together. We have never had differences. We have celebrated Eid and celebrated Christmas. We believed that you cannot be a Muslim if you really do not believe in Jesus as well. Because we believe also that he was a prophet and he came before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have a different way of dealing with our issues, and we intend to continue living our lives as we've done before. We think it's a richer life, it's a wealthier life, it's a much more worthy life to live.
What would you say to foreigners who are currently thinking whether to come on holiday to Kenya, those that have businesses or do business with Kenya, thinking of investing in Kenya? What would be your message to them?
Well, you know what? We expect and hope and are asking for their support. We cannot let these guys win. We can't. If they keep away, these terrorists would have won. You know, we can't let that happen. And so we in Kenya will do whatever is necessary to make sure that they have as much protection as possible. But they have to support us as well, fight this fight, because we're in it together. Those who died came from everywhere. Some of them were tourists, some were investors as well. Yeah, we are not going to allow this to turn, you know, those that were coming in away. And I hope that they will not do that. They will not support the terrorists against Kenya. They will support Kenya against the terrorists.
You are here representing your country as world leaders gather here in New York for the UN General Assembly. What's your message to the world? You'll be preparing the speech, I'm sure. What will be your message to the world when you give that speech in the coming days?
We're not participating in the General Assembly, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah, we're not. We're not participating in the General Assembly. I came here to have some side meetings. I've been having the side meetings. I've just come from a meeting with the East African
I'll rephrase the question then, probably
countries.
sensibly. You are here at a time...
Yes, when everybody's here.
I'll rephrase it that way. You're here at a time when world leaders are gathering in New York for the UN General Assembly. What is the message to all those world leaders here from Kenya right now?
That we are at the front line of this war on terrorism, and that we are willing to be part of the front line, and that we're willing to be in the leadership in the fight against terrorism. We want their support. We want their understanding. But more importantly than that, I think we need to now come together and establish the mechanisms that are required to forcefully fight this war against terror. Because it's not just about Kenya, it's about our world and the way that we see it, our values, the way of life that we have chosen, our open societies. That's what it's about. And so I hope that we can all come together to fight this war.